This video lesson explains how to evaluate expressions. For the front side of this worksheet, your instructions are to simplify each expression, then evaluate the expressions for the given variable value. You've already learned how to simplify expressions, so please pause the video right now and simplify number 1, 2, and 3. When you're done, come back and we'll check your answers and then evaluate for the given values. So please pause the video right now and simplify the problems for number 1, 2, and 3. Let's take a look together at number 1. Number 1 says 3x plus 7 plus 2x. If I reorder those terms, or in other words, if I use the commutative property of addition to pick the order that I write those terms in, I can change this to 3x plus 2x plus 7. And then what I'm really doing is I'm adding the 3x and the 2x first, and then afterwards I'm adding the 7. So 3x plus 2x, that gives me a total of 5x, and then I have that 7 afterwards. And remember that even though there's a plus sign in my answer, that's as simple as it can get because this 7 is not an x term. So without knowing what that x value is, I can't combine 5x and 7 any more than that. So your answer for number 1 should have been 5x plus 7. Now we need to evaluate that for x equals 2. So evaluate, that means figure out what this expression equals if x is 2. We can do this in 2 ways. One way to do this would be to start with my original expression. So my original expression was 3x plus 7 plus 2x. And what I could do would be to plug in 2 for each of those x's. So that would change this to 3 times 2 plus 7 plus 2 times 2. Let's see what that gives me. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 7, plus 2 times 2, which is 4. 6 plus 7 gives me 13, and 13 plus 4 gives me 17. So this should evaluate to 17. That's one way to evaluate my expression. In my opinion, an easier way to evaluate this expression would be to start with my simplified expression. So when I simplified, I got this down to 5x plus 7. And when I evaluate for x equals 2, what I can do is, since I only have one x in there, I only have to plug 2 in one time. So that gives me 5 times 2 plus 7, which simplifies to 10 plus 7. It's equal to 17. So I get the same answer no matter which expression I plug into, which is good because that means that the expression I started with is equal to my simplified expression, which is what I want. Let's take a look at number 2. Number 2 says 9a plus 3a minus 2b minus 6b. You should have simplified on your own already. I don't really need to reorder any of this, so I don't need to use the commutative property of addition at all, but I will be using the associative property of addition, which is the one that tells me that I can group my terms however I'd like. So right now I've just added parentheses into our original expression. And now I'm going to combine like terms. So my 9a plus 3a, that simplifies to 12a. And I'm adding that to negative 2b minus 6b, or in other words, negative 8b. If I write this in as few symbols as possible, I would change that plus negative 8b into minus 8b. So that changes my expression to 12a minus 8b. The next thing I'm asked to do is evaluate. I have 2 variables and I have 2 different values. So it says evaluate for a equals negative 1 and b equals 4. I'm going to use my simplified expression to evaluate. So my simplified expression that I came up with is 12a minus 8b. So what I'll do is I'll plug in the values and then see what it equals. So I'm taking 12, but instead of a, doing negative 1, minus 8 times b, which I said was 4. It's really important to make sure that your variable value. So like when a is -1, when I say the variable value, I mean the value that the variable is equal to. So that would be -1 for a. It's really important to make sure that that's in parentheses. Otherwise, you might accidentally read this as 12 minus 1 instead of 12 times -1. So always use parentheses around your variables when you're evaluating. So when I simplify this, 12 times -1 gives me -12. And I'm subtracting. I get 8 times 4, which is 32. So that changes my expression to -12 minus 32. And then if I think back to my rules for subtracting with positives and negatives, I know that this will change to -12 plus -32, which ends up being -44. If I had plugged into my original expression, I should have also gotten -44. It's much easier to use my simplified expression. I'll show you the work for that now, but I won't explain it in this video. Let's take a look at number 3. In order to simplify number 3, you need to apply the distributive property. So what the distributive property says is that 4 needs to get multiplied by everything inside the parentheses. So here's a long way of saying that. I'm taking 4 sets of 3x plus y. That means I'm taking 3x plus y plus 3x plus y plus 3x plus y plus 3x plus y. And then by using the associative and commutative properties of addition, I can separate out all my x's and y's and add the x's first and the y's second. So in other words, I can change this to 3x plus 3x plus 3x plus 3x, and then add that to y plus y plus y plus y. If I look at just my x's there, I've got 4 sets of 3x, that becomes 12x. And then I've got 4 y's, so that's where I'm getting 4y. Shortcut for getting to this answer would be to take 4 times 3x and add that to 4 times y. So what I'm doing is taking 4 times every term in those parentheses. And it still gets me to my same simplified expression of 12x plus 4y. After that, I'm asked to evaluate for x equals 5 and y equals 3. Once again, there are 2 ways to do this. One way would be to use my simplified expression. That way, in my opinion, is always easier. So I'm taking 12x plus 4y. And I know that x is 5 and y is 3. So that changes this to 12 times 5 plus 4 times 3. 12 times 5 is 60, and 4 times 3 is 12. So when I finish simplifying this, that gives me the value of 72. Let's see how this compares to if I plug my values in beforehand. In this case, given the parentheses, it might actually be easier to plug your values in beforehand. You're starting with 4 times 3x plus y. If I did this correctly, I should also get 72 as my answer. So I'm taking 4 times 3 times 5 plus 3. So following my order of operations, I need to start with what's in the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, or outside the parentheses rather, I have 4. But inside the parentheses, I have 3 times 5, which is 15, plus 3. So I'm evaluating 4 times 18. Which does simplify to 72. So since I got 72 for both, that means my answer is correct, right? I've got the same value for both.